Hey, what's going on, guys? We're back. Matt's gonna go over the full breakdown of numbers. I've been driving the car for about, I think, 2,000 miles now, and we've changed quite a few things. Matt's gonna go over numbers first for anybody that's interested, and then I'll kind of go over what we've changed and stuff like that. You have the list there?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we try to do everything as cheap as we could and just budget friendly. We bought the manifold for 160 bucks. It's just an eBay manifold. We knew we were gonna have to modify it, but I've used it before on a Supra, and the guy daily drives it and it works great. So I just had to modify the Vband for modify the flange for the wastegate. Easy enough because the wastegate comes with the flange. So that was 160. The blow-off valve and wastegate was a package deal from VS Racing for 150. The turbo was a GT35. It was 200 bucks, eBay turbo, journal bearing. The filter, 25 bucks. We did a 4-inch pipe right here for the filter. That was 25 bucks. Miscellaneous couplers that weren't in the kit were 60 bucks. Vacuum lines, 10 bucks. MAF housing was 40 bucks. The whole intercooler kit, I think we got that off eBay, and it was 140 bucks. It's all 2.5-inch piping and just a small little intercooler. We needed one extension, one straight extension, and that was $30. We bought some O2 spacers. Abe will show you in a minute. I guess I'll show you right now.
Yeah. Let's see here.
They have the little cats built into them. They're little O2 extensions down here.
Let me see, let me pull this off real quick. So the list that we're rattling off right now is what we ended up with. So we didn't start with this. Once Matt's done, I'll go ahead and explain all that. So those.
Yeah. So those were $40.
And we had to put one on the downpipe there. So you can see that right there. And then we actually put one down here on the bottom. So down there, I don't know if you guys, yeah, you guys can see that. So that right there, obviously it's not pretty. Ideally, you don't want it to have it hang that low, because if you lower the car, it might hit. But that was the only position we could get it in. But anyways, I'll explain that here in a sec once Matt's done. What else we had left?
So we had we bought a bunch of fittings. I could kind of go over them real quick.
Yeah.
We bought this little 1/8-inch pipe to a nipple, straight nipple here for our fuel line. We bought the fittings for the regulator, the fitting on the feed side of the turbo, also on the drain. There's a dash 10 AN, and then one we tapped into the block that we went over.
I think you guys can see it right there. It's kind of blurry. There we go. So that fitting right there. And then there's one, which if you watch the other videos, this stuff won't be in the way. Yeah, I can't really show it to you guys. But anyways, it's a fitting that goes into the block there for the drain.
Yeah, and then there's a couple fittings in the fuel pump hat. The oil feed and drain lines. Oh, that was, yeah, fittings and oil feed and drain lines were about 100 bucks. Yeah. Exhaust bends, we just bought some mandrel bend 90s and cut them to fit how we needed them for the downpipe. Those were 50 bucks off Summit. The wideband Abe bought was 560. It's a Zetronics or whatever. Yeah. Like I said, you can go cheaper or not run one at all. Doesn't seem to really.
Yeah, air to fuel, we got dialed in, yeah.
Shouldn't need it. The fuel pressure regulator, we bought a cheap Chinese one and it failed. So,
yeah,
get a good one. We got an aeromotive regulator with gauge for 180 bucks. We bought weld and O2 bungs, and those were 25 bucks. They were just off Amazon. I think it was like a pack of 6 for 25 bucks. Fuel pump, 255 is what we put in it. It was 100 bucks. And some fuel line just to go from the regulator back to the tank was 80 bucks. And we just got that in our local parts store. So without the wideband, it was $14.15 and all those parts. Some of the stuff, like if you've already done your fuel pump, you can save $100 there. So with the Wideband, it's about $2,000.
Yeah.
And that's with us doing all the work ourselves, so welding everything ourselves.
Yeah, so the turbo that we ended up with is not the same one you guys saw us install. So this is the GT35, as Matt mentioned. What we started with that you guys saw in the install was a 6162 84 AR on the hot side. It was a VS Racing turbo, and it was slightly too big. It was not fitment wise, but for boosting, it wouldn't boost till like $4,500, and these cars redline at 6200. So we ended up switching smaller turbo, and the dyno run you guys saw was with this turbo, not with the VS Racing. We switched that within a matter of what, like 2 weeks?
Yeah.
Of having it. Fuel regulator, also, we switched out, like Matt said. That went out within a week. The gauge stopped working. We couldn't get it to read right. What else? Oh, injectors. We went back to stock, which I think we mentioned. We started with the NA Supra injectors, the green tops. It was just running way, way too rich. We also added these, which you guys never saw, the ones Matt was talking about here, these little cats. So they do come with, it's essentially like, I don't know if it's platinum, but it's a little filter, I guess you could say, and a cap on them. Those fell off in the exhaust just because of all the heat. So if you're gonna use those, I would recommend you pull them apart. I can't really show you because I don't want to take it apart, but you'll know what I'm talking about. There's like a little mesh inside this portion of it here that goes into the pipe, and that fell off and went into the exhaust. So if I were you, I would just take that off on both of them. And I think, what else did we change? Oh yeah, the fuel pump. So the fuel pump was actually a 340, and obviously we can't really show you that, but it was a Quantum 340 liter per hour pump. It was $100, like Matt said. I don't think it's a bad idea to switch it. It wasn't necessary. Anyways, like I was saying, so I don't think you need it. We didn't need it at the beginning to swap out the fuel pump. The only reason I did was because we were trying to figure out the fuel thing, which ended up being the injectors were not working for us, whether they were bad injectors, they just weren't cleaned properly, or they just were running too rich for whatever reason. The regulator also crapped out on us, so that's why we were just troubleshooting, and we just ended up swapping the pump for that reason. It wasn't necessary. Although I think it is recommended. These cars are 20 years old now. So your fuel system, I definitely wouldn't cheap out on it, even though we did originally. It's probably not a good idea, especially since you're not tuning the car. If you tune it, I guess you could maybe get away with that, but we didn't tune it. So you want your fuel system to be on point. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it, right? Is there anything else you can think of?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all the changes we did. There's a couple details that we kind of glazed over. We can kind of go into more detail right now. So some of the details that we didn't really go over are these caps here. So you want to cap this line here. That's just going in the intake and putting pressure on the injectors. So we're capping that. We capped this here because I think that went to there.
Yeah, I did.
And so we just capped it so it didn't put all that boost on those injectors. We capped this line here, and then these back two back here, they come off your valve covers. We just routed them back into the intake side of this, along with this little one.
Oh
here.
yeah, so this little, I bolted it down so.
Yeah, it's like a little intake air temp sensor, I think.
Let's see here, can you get it? So that normally sits at the bottom, your intake box sits here. It sits at the back corner of it, so make sure you undo that, but that's gonna be plugged into here. So you just route the hose to here, that would go to the air intake box.
We welded our blow-off valve here. We never really went over that. We left the stock springs that came with it. They're a high vacuum spring. People were asking also about the O2 sensors. We used all the O2 sensors. We put one right here in this primary tube, the first tube. Then we put, and that was the furthest one forward, I think. And then there's another one on the back tube here, but it's on the bottom side. I put it on the bottom so we'd have room. Then I think, is this? Yeah, this is our other O2 sensor here. And then the last one down there that you can kind of see down there, that's our wideband. And then Abe showed you the other one we used.
And, oh, also, so we kept getting an evap code, and what ended up happening is when you're taking all this stuff apart, all these lines, I mean, you can tell this isn't the stock line, this is a new line. So all these lines are most likely gonna crack. So keep an eye out for that, because you're gonna get codes if any of these crack. So what ended up cracking, I don't know if you guys can see here, was this little horseshoe line here. It's an evap something solenoid. It's this thing here, but this goes to here, and this actually cracked as well. And then the bottom nipple goes routed into here, the intake plenum. So that was throwing an evap code. It took us a while to figure it out, but it ended up being that. We replaced those hoses. So just keep an eye. There's a lot of vacuum lines coming in through here. One goes to the butterfly here. And those, they get so loose after you pull them off because they're so old that you're either going to want to zip tie them all or change them for new ones. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. A lot of these connectors are going to bust. We had this one unfortunately bust, so we had to do zip ties. I think all of them did, right? This one too over here.
Yeah, I think so.
So just keep an eye out for that. You know, everything's really brittle. That's plastic because of the heat throughout the years. So I think that's really all that I can think of now.
Yeah, another little quick thing we did was this heater line. It's kind of kinked here, but we just trimmed it to make the bend. And that's probably the only thing that's kind of bad, but it's just for the heater core.
Yeah, and it does work, but it doesn't get as hot as it would normally. I mean, the heater still works. You know, it's pretty cold here and it heats up the car just fine. But maybe you want to buy one that's actually kinked the right direction. That way you get the appropriate heat you want in there.
Yeah, you can just go to your local parts store and just search their shelf for the right bends.
Any other trouble we encountered?
Yeah, we didn't heat wrap anything. We just kind of planned the route of the exhaust just right. I mean, we heat wrapped the exhaust, I guess, but it's not really too close to anything. So the turbo is, I mean, the placement works.
Yeah, especially since we went down. So originally with the bigger turbo, the hot side was hitting. That's why Matt welded this portion. But now with the GT35, which if you want something to spool quicker, I wouldn't go much bigger than this if you're not going for a full tuned car, just because you're not going to get any boost until high RPM. So it's going to be kind of worthless. So GT35 I say was the way to go, and it's cheaper too anyways. What else did we do? I think that's pretty much it. Can you think of anything?
I think that's about it.
So far the car's been running amazing. I've driven it almost 2,000 miles. It's on this last road trip I ended up getting 24 miles to the gallon, and that is with like flooring it on the on-ramps, you know, passing cars and just cruising the rest of the way, going 75, and I was getting 24 miles per gallon. So I was really impressed with that. I was really surprised. Other than that, we don't have any check engine lights, and we can show you that real quick. Let me grab my keys.
Yeah, the car, I mean, just driving around town, it drives like it's stock until you get into boost, of course.
And we're at a little over, like I said, close to 2,000 miles. And so far everything's been running fine. It'll hunt for 14.7, but other than that, it seems to work just fine.
Yeah, people were asking, it is a manual car.
Oh, right.
Manual LSD.
And yeah. So we are in the middle of moving shops. Matt's moving, so we're gonna be probably moving for the next week or so. So we'll probably miss videos next week. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, feel free to put it in the comments. We'll try to reach out as much as we can. But we are in the middle of moving, and then we will be back. Oh yeah, we'll put the email in the description if you guys want to email us. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks for supporting us, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Yeah, if you got any questions on anything specific that we missed, go ahead and let us know, and we'll try to get back to everybody. I think we got everything explained pretty well. And if you're local and need some help, we'll help you out.
Yeah. Cool. See you on the next one.